Coming up on American Medicine Today, the New World Order looks to destroy motherhood, fatherhood, and traditional Christian values. Kimberly Ells joins us to explain how it's impossible to crush the Invincible Family. Then Tonja suffered from severe sciatica pain that made it nearly impossible to perform routine activities such as walking short distances. Thanks to the Bonati Spine Institute, she is happy to be returning to her normal life pain-free. Finally, attorney for President Donald J. Trump joins us to discuss what really happened during the 2020 election and the cover-up that followed. Find out who was complacent amongst the electoral fraud and how we prevent it in 2024. Coming up on American Medicine Today.
Featuring cutting-edge science and medical innovation, touching personal stories of recovery from pain, along with political, social, and healthcare issues plaguing our nation. This is American Medicine Today, brought to you by the Bonati Spine Institute and Alfred Bonati, MD.
Welcome to American Medicine Today. I'm Kimberly Bonati alongside Ethan Youker and world-renowned orthopedic surgeon Dr. Alfred Bonati. So a new book is hoping to expose the alliance between globalists, liberals, feminists, and socialists in their attack on the nuclear family and Christian ideals. Joining us to discuss is Kimberly Ells, author of The Invincible Family, Why the Global Campaign to Crush Motherhood and Fatherhood Can't Win. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So in your book, you talk about how in the name of equality, women are actually losing their rights. Can you explain?
Right. There's a huge push, and my experience has been at the United Nations over the past 10 years, and I've observed that there's a concerted effort to make men and women not equal, but the same.
Yes.
And anyone who is observing things can see that men and women are in fact different, and they bring different strengths to the table. But more and more, we're seeing that women are being convinced that in order to be truly powerful, that they need to embrace things that have traditionally been assigned to men. One of the cases I make in the book is this simply isn't the case. Women can do a wide variety of things, and so can men. There's a great deal of overlap in those things, but women are unique in the fact that they can be mothers. And so often women are told that that's a powerless position, a worthless position.
Right.
I take the opposite view. I take the view that that is, in fact, the most important and most powerful position that there is.
Well, and then you also talk about in the book that the family is being targeted by both socialists and feminists, which tend to be one and the same. But what actions are both groups taking to try and destroy the family?
Right. Well, if you go back to the early writings of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, which I do in the book, you see that their agenda was overtly anti-family. In fact, they say in the Communist Manifesto that they want to abolish the family. And one of the ways that specifically Engels says that must be done is that all women must be brought into the public workforce, kind of whether they want to or not. And that's the way that society will be the most prosperous. And I have no problem with women being in the workforce. I myself do other things other than mothering, although I have 5 children. But when it becomes the desired default that we pass over the teaching of our children to people other than parents, then we're in trouble. And that's what I've seen at the global level, that there are very many instruments and programs in place and moving with huge money behind them to, they don't openly say destroy the family, but that works to unhinge the family in so many ways.
They certainly do. And our family sees that all the time. And it's so unfortunate. They try to kind of pervert science and promote their unscientific data. Can you explain further?
Yeah, I mean, so many instances of this. One troubling thing that has happened recently is that the Biden administration has partnered with the World Bank, which is in the United Nations umbrella of organizations. And they recently just rolled out last month an initiative to join with the World Bank in providing universal daycare for everyone. Now, some people may need or want that. But again, if we're making state rearing of children the default, I think any benefits that we see are going to be greatly outweighed by the hurt to children and therefore to society.
So, I mean, what do you think the ultimate goal is in dissolving the nuclear family? That can't be productive once you dissolve the family like that to stay cohesive, because you're not going to, and then kids are going to go astray and get into crime and violence and all of those things. So I don't understand why they think this is a good thing, I guess.
Right. Well, you asked what the ultimate goal is. And again, it goes back to the early Marxism of the goal of abolishing the family. But why do they need to do that, I think is what you're getting at. And it's because the family is the most powerful organization in the world. And because mothers and fathers, their children belong to them. And parents can teach their children whatever they want. And so if you are a person or an organization that has global ideals and wants to enact collectivism on any level, the family is your enemy. You have to break down the family in order to usurp the power that it inherently has over the children of the world, because the children of the world are going to grow up to be the adults of the world. And so as long as mothers and fathers in all of their diverse viewpoints are teaching the children of the world, it's going to be very difficult to commandeer the world at large into a socialist or collectivist regime or organization.
So who has the left elected as their new ally in the United Nations? Can you explain?
Yes, well, I can tell you the thing that brought me into this arena to begin with 10 years ago was that I discovered a document online called Exclaim, and it was published by International Planned Parenthood Federation. And it was all about children's sexual rights. And that disturbed me as a mom. And so I got looking into that, and I decided, okay, this looks like it's real, and therefore I'm going to fight it for the rest of my life. So International Planned Parenthood Federation, I've since learned, has a huge seat at the world table, and especially at the United Nations. The United Nations regularly partners with IPPF to enact programs and specifically to proliferate the idea that children inherently have sexual rights. And what that means, in their words, is that they have the right to privacy, to seek sexual pleasure, to access sexual information and sexual services without the consent of their parents. And so that's the thing that thrust me into this arena. And it's much bigger, actually, than I ever imagined. And that we see all these troubling things coming down in our schools. And what I have found out is that it's coming from a global source, which appears to me to be anchored at the United Nations in partnership with one of the entities is International Planned Parenthood Federation.
Anytime that we talk about the sexualization of children, you know that there's pedophilia and all these other issues going on in the world, human trafficking, and they're focusing on our children. Why can't they just be innocent little beings learning about the history of our country and not being indoctrinated with such filth?
Right. Well, Aristotle originally said, the fate of nations depends upon the education of little children. That's why. That's why they focus on little children and sexualizing them, because if you teach a little child in its youth that it has a human right to seek sexual activity and sexual pleasure outside of marriage, outside of any responsibility, you have set that child's feet on a certain path. And that path is going to be destructive to him or her personally, but it's also going to be destructive of the family unit, which is going to give you, if you're seeking global power, a great leg up in that battle. If you commandeer the minds of young people, you have won the war. There's many things that bring happiness, but really, when we look closely, the family brings us the greatest joy. Our careers may be fulfilling, but ultimately, raising our children is the greatest asset, the greatest benefit, the greatest joy.
It certainly is. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly Ells, for being on the show. We appreciate your time and your candor on what is going on with the left and the sickness against children.
Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Make sure you stay tuned. Coming up after the break, a story of recovery.
Revolutionary in his field, Dr. Bonati created, perfected, and patented the Bonati Spine Procedures. Using his genius, Bonati invented the precise tools necessary to minimize surgery, scarring, anesthesia, and recovery. So successful are the Bonati Spine Procedures, they consistently reflect 98.75% patient satisfaction. 75,000 procedures have been performed exclusively at our location. Nearly half our patients suffer from failed back and neck surgeries at other facilities. Visit AskBonati.com. Tonja is an active grandmother who enjoys spending time with family.
Taught high school for 28 years. I teach line dance classes, and I have grandbabies that I take care of. So I lift weights, and I do like yoga. I don't recall an event. I started experiencing pain in my right hip probably about 2017. It was right around Halloween that it really hit, and I moved and got this really strange nervy sciatica pain, and it's just almost like my right side of my body just, my leg kind of collapsed. About 2020, I started experiencing some low back pain all on the same right side where my hip was hurting. It would hit me very suddenly, especially if I had been in a seated position. My leg would just go numb and it would give out. And then, of course, like I said, I have a 3-month-old grandbaby. So my biggest fear was, what if I'm holding him and I take a step and I can't, control that leg movement. I used to run a lot. I got where I was not running at all. I could not ride in the car for long periods of time and driving for long periods of time. So I would avoid those situations, avoid being in the car or sitting or standing for long. As I said, I teach dance, and so I would feel like I would have to rest up all day long to be able to do my class in the evenings. I would have like a little spasm.
Looking for a way to relieve the pain, Tonja tried numerous conservative treatments.
I'd used heat and ice. At one time, had a little at-home red light therapy, tried resting, topical medications, tried needling. I had done the PT and go chiropractic and do different things like that, and then it would subside. What gave me the most comfort was probably either the laser therapy or massage therapy. I'd started using massage therapy.
Tonja met with her primary care physician seeking help. They ordered an MRI and referred her to a neurologist.
When I had to get the MRI, I had to go back to my primary care physician. He had looked at the MRI and wanted me to go see a neurologist. The neurologist wanted to do a fusion, and that just wasn't something I was ready to do, especially after talking to my PT. He just felt like that I would be kind of sliding down a slippery slope. It would be, I would get those vertebrae fused, and then it probably, in his opinion, would not be long before I would have to have other vertebrae fused. And I just, I still think I'm young at heart. I didn't want to deal with that. I wanted something that I could keep my activity level the same and something that'd be a lot less invasive.
When her friend and physical therapist recommended the Bonati Spine Institute, she decided to call for an appointment.
There is a lady in my hometown. I actually did not speak with her, but I spoke with her husband, and she had surgery here like 25 years ago and has not had a surgery since. I think knowing someone that had, or at least knowing of someone that had had a successful experience, made it a little bit less intimidating, I think. I went online to get information about sending my MRI, and I was not exactly sure how to do it online, so I just looked at the phone number and called and just asked if someone could walk me through the procedure of getting my MRI to the clinic. And that's when they assigned me to Jelaine, and she explained the process of how I would get my MRI through Dropbox and get it here. After I sent my MRI, I actually spoke to Dr. Bonati after he had looked at my MRI and told me that, that he felt like I would need 2 surgeries, and then got me back in touch with Jelaine. She helped me through all the paperwork and scheduling my appointment.
Tonja's experience at the Bonati Spine Institute was a little different than most. Upon arriving, she was given a physical exam, received updated x-rays at the on-campus imaging center, and had her first targeted Bonati Spine procedures all on the same day.
I was very nervous, but even, just when I signed in, was very comfortable, and everyone was very nice and greeted me. My appointment was at 8, and I was here at 7:55 and got right in. I ended up having an x-rays because they already had my MRI here. Oh, that was very nice to not have to get back in and leave the grounds to go do that. We were able to walk. My husband and I walked over to the imaging. It did that, and then walked back over. And really, by the time I got back over, they already had my images over here and was ready to consult. Dr. Nowak did explain and showed me which vertebrae that he would do the surgery on. Gosh, I was probably in surgery by 11 or 11:30. So I felt like that was a pretty quick morning to be already, do my consultation and then to have my surgery as well.
The exclusive Bonati Spine procedures are performed incrementally using conscious IV sedation, where the patient remains awake and communicating with their surgeon to ensure their source of pain is eliminated before leaving the operating table.
Being awake was interesting. I think it was very helpful, my husband being in there, that we had no idea that he would be able to observe in surgery. And so I think that is a big plus, is having someone, kind of your own little personal advocate in there with you. And I think that made me feel less nervous. So I was experiencing pain walking to the OR, getting up on the table. When he was testing the different, nerve areas to see, I can remember feeling the pain and then not having the pain at all.
No pain in your butt?
No.
No pain back of the leg?
No.
No pain back of the calf?
Oh.
Surgical guests of the Bonati Spine Institute are often surprised by how quickly they can be up and walking following surgery. Following a brief walk in the recovery room, patients return home or to their hotel rooms to continue recovering.
The recovery time was very fast. I felt like the staff was very attentive, taking my vitals. My husband just drove around and picked me up. I just walked out. No hospital stay, which was very nice. Will not have to have physical therapy, any extra therapy, which is very nice. The main thing that is required is for me to walk, which is good because I'm very fit. I'm active anyway. That helped me a lot last night. We walked around the pier. I didn't feel quite as stiff. We're going to stay somewhat in the area. We're not going to hit the road and go back. It's about a 16-hour drive back to Arkansas. We have friends that live in Cape Coral, about 3 hours away. So we're going to do some sightseeing today and walk around and then go there and walk around. And so that is the main activity that I will continue doing as I recover, as to continue to walk.
Tonja is looking forward to returning to her active lifestyle and enjoying time with her friends and family.
I will definitely recommend the Bonati Spine Institute. I'm anxious to get back and tell, especially my PT who recommended the surgery center, how successful, and to also let him know to tell any of his patients that if they would like to speak to me about my experience, I would be happy to share the positive experience that I've had. I'm just looking forward to just being more confident in my movement and to not have pain, get back to my normal activities.
I think everybody was shocked, like, really, you had surgery today? I had a drain tube. I was at my desk doing payroll for 200 employees, worked till night, got up, went to bed.
This is the honest to God truth, and was recovering. I didn't feel anything. The pain that I was suffering is gone. I can go back to work in like 3 days.
The surgeries that I had, actually, I recovered very easily from, I would say. I actually went to work the following afternoon.
That afternoon, when it was done, I actually felt so much better already.
6 days after surgery, I was back in the gym, slowly but surely working my way back to fighting, back to basically 100% of fighting.
First time I came in here was Monday, and today is Thursday. I've had 2 surgeries and am doing fantastic. I'm still in shock that I can walk. That's all within 4 days.
Bonati succeeds where others fail. Welcome back to American Medicine Today. So a new book is being described as the first and only investigative report into what truly happened in the 2020 election and the cover-up that followed, and details what we must do now as our next presidential election approaches. Joining us to discuss is Christina Bobb, investigative reporter, attorney for former President Trump, and author of Stealing Your Vote: The Inside Story of the 2020 Election and What It Means for 2024. Thank you for joining us, Christina.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, we all know how the media labeled the 2020 claims of election fraud, the big lie. But after digging in, you uncovered the ugly truth. What was it that you found?
How ugly was it?
Yeah, it was really ugly, and I think we've seen that play out. The way I like to summarize my findings are Democrats stole the election and Republicans covered it up. I was quite surprised by the collaboration between the two parties, where we can't seem to collaborate on anything, politically, yet covering up the 2020 election was something that they both were willing to do.
So explain that, dive into that. How were Republicans complicit in covering up something so ridiculous?
Dastardly.
That's a great word. Dastardly.
Yeah, it really is. So I was encouraged initially thinking, okay, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, these are all traditionally Republican states in the sense that they have Republican legislatures. There's Republican state and local leaders in the majority of the counties in these areas. About half of them had Republican attorney generals, even more had Republican district attorneys all over the state. So I thought, surely, like, we only need one leader who, will subpoena information or, launch an investigation into something. And the level of political pushback that those leaders that did stand up, there were several leaders in all of these states that said, we do want to investigate. I like to use Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania as an example. He quickly rose to, stardom in Pennsylvania as someone who said, hey, we need to take a closer look at Pennsylvania. And he was shut down in his efforts by the Republican Senate leadership. He didn't even get a chance to fight the Democrats, because it was the Republican Senate who shut him down. And I saw similar stories like that throughout all of these red states.
I don't understand, though. Why?
Yes.
Why would they try to shut him down?
Their hatred of Trump, there would be no other reason.
Right. I think they all have their own reasons, whether it is hatred of Trump, whether it is corruption themselves or intimidation or, whatever, a myriad. I think largely what I saw throughout the Republican Party was our side has become the party, or had become the party. I think it's changing, but had become the party of let's go along to get along. Let's play along with the status quo. Don't rock the boat. Let's not challenge anything. Let's just keep things going forward without getting our hands dirty. And that was exactly what Democrats were counting on for the 2020 election. They said, we can ramrod all of these crazy mail-in ballots and all of these law-breaking procedures because Republicans don't fight anything.
Why they don't fight? The problem is we elect people and we take the time to even search what type of people is these people and why once they are being elected, they are individuals that they are incapable to do their job.
There's so much on the conservative side of the aisle that we can clean up, but we absolutely have the ability to clean up before 2024, that we can secure 2024. That is the point that I want everybody to take home is it's not so bad that we can't fix it. We can fix it. But personally, I don't think we should be relying on people in elected office who have proven that they aren't going to make any changes between 2020 and 2022.
Yes.
So at this point, I think it becomes a grassroots effort where the American people really need to get involved to make sure we're securing our local elections from the ground up. I have some faith, but not enough faith in those in elected positions right now. So let's do what we can to encourage them and take matters into our own hands.
What do we do, though? Because in some of these states, we have proven that the fraud happened, the big lie. We dispelled that and we showed that it truly happened. I mean, what does it mean? What does it do? Could we reinstate Trump and throw the regime out that's currently there? What can we do?
Well, I think we need to secure 2024 before we're going to be able to do anything with 2020 because time keeps going, right? We don't pause because we all have questions. So we have to secure 2024. We can do it. One of my favorite examples is Detroit. I talked to many poll workers on the ground in Detroit. Republicans told me they were outnumbered 100-1 in some areas. There were 100 times more Democrat volunteers than Republican volunteers. And that's something we can change. Right. I mean, we can't get too upset when they're the ones showing up to actually run the election.
Unless we are organized, and the organization needs to be coming from some group that organizes.
I've been really pleased to see a number of grassroots efforts that have kind of arisen since the 2020 election. There's many in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, where they've kind of coalesced and said, we're going to look into our own local elections and we're going to form volunteers. So that is changing. I also am excited to be a member of the Trump campaign for 2024 as myself, helping to organize grassroots efforts.
Excellent.
And I hope that we can actually be successful in organizing this. And I will say that I have had some good success recently working with RNC leadership. I know there's very strong feelings on our side about RNC leadership, but I can tell you that I've had good experience, at least as far as this effort goes, as far as organizing grassroots efforts. So I do think that organization is coming together, but you're right. We all need to get involved.
We are President Trump supporters.
The corruption is so intense, and the benefit from these people that they obtain is so great. There's no consequences of the things that they do. And you telling me we're going to have the same machines doing votes again?
Well, I think it's a fair point that in your local area, you can put pressure on your local leaders to make these changes. I think that's part of the issue. My point is, I think the difference between 2020 and 2022 versus 22 to 24 is I think we were relying too much on our Republican, not just Republican, all leaders to make the necessary changes without as much involvement. And I'm saying to make a bigger difference between 22 and 24, we have to get involved, whether it's volunteering or whether it's your point, petitioning your government to make changes. If you want to see, different legislation passed, get involved with a group that's doing that and, lobby your state legislatures to whatever it is, whether you want voter IDs, get rid of mail-in ballots, if you want
one-day voting.
How are you going to do this? How are you going to control these other 5 states?
They're absolutely after Texas. I will tell you that, and I actually cover that partially in the book. Lucky for you, I know a lot of citizens in some of these other 5 states that you're referencing that are getting involved and believe that they can make change, and I have faith in them, and I think they will. But it comes down to that. It comes down to putting pressure on your local leaders to make the change that you want made. Arizona got rid of the Zuckerbox donations. They still have drop boxes right now. I know they're working on other voting reforms at the moment. We have to see how that plays out. But the citizens in Arizona and these other states need to get involved and let their leaders know what they want for their election.
Yeah, the leaders are corrupted. Do you think the leaders are they are going to let this thing go?
I'm going to push back. I spent months on the ground with these people, and there are very good leaders in all of those states. Not all of them are. Some, as you say, I would say are corrupt, and some are not. And those that are not some of them are in positions to make change. You can read about it. I give a lot of details about the ones that were fighting for election integrity and the ones that were not. So I will not make a blanket statement saying that they are all corrupt.
Well, thank you so much, Christina Bobb, for being on the show. We invite you back to continue the heated discussion, but we're certainly glad for all the headway that you're making, and we are totally pro-Trump. Thank you for being on our program.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take great care. Thank you for watching American Medicine Today. Check us out next Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern on Newsmax and anytime on YouTube. Search American Medicine Today. If you have any comments or questions, contact us at the number below. You can tweet at Dr. Bonati using hashtag American Medicine Today or hashtag AMT. We would like to hear from you.